All right. We are live. All right, guys, welcome to our second episode of Remote Voices. We have a guest this week. I'm going to introduce her in just a second. We're excited to kind of queue up all these topics that we've got on the right. You're going to see our first tweet already on the right. Just ignore it for now, because we're going to focus on our amazing guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and what your company does, and yeah, we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. This is super awesome. I'm Brooke. I am COO and co-founder at Workfrom. My background is project management and front-end development. We're currently a Techstars company, so going through that. Workfrom's mission is to improve the lives of remote workers, and so far we've done that by helping people find places to work, like coffee shops, co-working spaces, and now we're moving into helping people connect better with the people that also love those places, and in the current situation right now, virtually connecting people for things that they missed out on when they don't have an office, when it specifically pertains to other humans.
Now, how do you connect to them to these places? Is it rented, or are you just finding them spots that they can just go, like in the case of a coffee shop? Just tell me a little bit more about your model.
Yeah, so it's a crowdsourced platform, so it's not rentable. It's literally like very similar to the place piece of our world is very similar to a Yelp. So anybody can add a place. You see Wi-Fi speeds if it's noisy. A ton of coffee shops are on there. And then also, as we're moving into this new world, we have a Slack community. But yeah, as far as the place goes, it's all free and crowdsourced.
Very cool. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how has this, virus situation impacted you guys? Because clearly you focus on real estate and real locations. What have you guys done to kind of adopt to this new world or adapt your product?
Yeah, so what we've done, you're right. Yeah, people aren't quite using the places piece of everything, but we were moving into kind of shifting our product a little bit and making places a part of what we are and not necessarily our entire core. So we're really leaning into our Slack community right now and not like trying to get people to go any place. So we've been doing a lot of virtual workshops. And so we have the community was built because people are naturally drawn to work from and finding coffee shops when they were remote workers and, kind of isolated and lonely. And so that just naturally evolved into an online community. And so we're just leaning into that right now and launching product or features that will help people connect purely virtual right now. Yeah, like I said, lots of virtual workshops, trying to create some one-on-one connections a la donut style, but kind of on video, testing some things there. Yeah, it's a lot of testing.
And this is like people that aren't necessarily in the same company, right? Like this is just
Correct.
co-working and okay, cool.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, because we kind of like to say, your coworkers might be all over the world, but you also have coworkers that are near you and people working like you that you could easily meet. That it's kind of hard right now. Actually, it's really
Very
hard.
cool. Yeah. Hunter and I had talked about doing something like this, like coffee shop radio, just like a place where you could tune in and almost just hear like background cafe noises to make you not feel so lonely. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, or if Hunter, you want to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I do know of a service, God, I can't remember the name, but it is like a ambient noise coffee shop situation. I can't remember the name, but we have a channel in our Slack specifically called Coffee Break. Anybody can start a Zoom channel at any time and just basically hop on and chat with each other. We have people hopping on there from like Ecuador, Ireland, Boston. So that's something we've done too. And I think a live co-working idea could be a cool idea. So yeah, I think if you guys did that, it would be awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I'm curious, how are you handling your Slack channel right now? Did you guys create an entirely new Slack community just for work from?
No, so we always had one. It was, yeah, we always had a Slack community. What we've done is drop the price. So it was kind of this, $99 lifetime happening. We've dropped the price down and might even continue to do that just because, we want to get people in there. And it's kind of the updates we're making to our actual website are kind of trying to mesh what we've created in Slack with Places. So yeah, the Slack community is not new, but we're definitely trying new things and also kind of reorganizing channels so that as more people come in, it's not Chit Chat is like our biggest channel by far, and it's awesome. Everybody's just like having random conversation, but we're trying to like make sure it's definitely organized based on expertise or the coffee shop thing. So those are changes we're making, and I think just making sure that it's not just a bunch of noise and that it's actually helpful and valuable for people.
Do you find that most of your users are like in a large company, or they're freelancers or agencies? Because I feel like as a freelancer, former freelancer myself, the isolation and loneliness thing is a real issue for me. But inside of a company, I guess I have people to talk to. Like, what's your user split typically look like?
So the last survey we did, about 70% of our work from members were employees at companies. But we also do get a lot of freelancers, but just from the chatter I noticed in Slack, it's not everybody might have the team culture that you do. So even if you're in a big company, you can still feel that isolation if your kind of remote work culture isn't super thriving. But yeah, so we have a kind of a mix of people, but it's definitely majority are employees of companies. And
I think
a lot
that's
of times
super interesting because like that does speak to a problem generally at a culture level, that people feel the need that they have to go reach out to this third party service because they still don't feel part of kind of a larger group of people, even at their own company.
Yeah, and I mean, it'd be awesome too in a world where work from could be that for a company. Like if they're not super, if a lot of people are going remote, and creating a remote culture I know is super hard. So it's like, just get everybody into work from will help create that. Who knows? That would be pretty cool.
I can see it functioning almost like a employee benefit, like for, in office employees, you get coffee stations and quinoa bowls. And if you're a remote employee, you get access to work from because that's the stuff that you miss out of in the office. I can definitely see like it being a perk for, remote employees.
Yeah, hell yeah, that would be awesome. And then just even thinking like in the future when we are going to, our coffee shops that we love, which we've learned people have like their 2 or 3 places. If you're a coffee shop person, that's where you go. So to be able to help people connect with others that also love those things too in a physical world, not just digitally, I think would be super awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Well, awesome. I mean, product's amazing. That's definitely needed. If you look at any of the stats on remote work, loneliness, isolation, those are some of the biggest problems that people have in remote work. So you're solving a real problem. And again, I think it would actually draw people to a company if a company offered that as a perk. But yeah, let's dive into some of these tweets, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Obviously, we kind of live in our own little founder bubble. Hunter and myself, commonly go back and forth on all these topics. So it's awesome to bring kind of a third party in and get their opinion on something. So I'd love to just kind of like show you a couple tweets and we'll have some discussion around them. Sound like a plan?
Sweet.
Cool. All right. So this first one is basically, and I don't know how connected you are into kind of the developer world, but GitHub bought NPM, and we already know that GitHub themselves actually got purchased, I think last year. So there's like this nesting doll situation happening with a lot of what developers at least consider community tools, even though at the end of the day, I think they are technically companies, and, GitHub was, for profit, but I think a lot of people view it as this giant open source collective. I'm just curious, like, did you hear this news? Like, what do you think? What do you think the impact's going to be to the developer community?
No, I didn't hear this news. I guess in my world, my question would be, I'm curious how big NPM is as a company. Will they be fully remote now? Because I know GitHub is like a huge kind of a huge company, like one of the largest companies that's 100% fully remote. So I'm curious how that's going to work out. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to add some context on that. So NPM is your node package manager. So when you're developing in JavaScript, this is the thing that just hundreds of thousands of open source projects are hosted there. It's like the thing that like saves everyone time in their development stack. So like our project at the end of the day is almost built entirely out of just like free NPM packages that help us like move forward very quickly with our project. So yeah, I think the concern for the community is now it's going to a for-profit organization. They could like start paid modules. They could lock down the free stuff. Maybe they'll remove stuff that's like competitive to them. So it's interesting, you know, when big corporations end up buying up these kind of like hacky indie maker tools, because those guys start to get scared because maybe all of their stuff is going to get taken away. I think is kind of the fear.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, so I've used NPM like in school and stuff. So I remember like doing it in my terminal and having all that stuff be super helpful. I would hope that GitHub would see the benefit in not changing it. People love it for a reason. I'm curious, did you guys see much of a change with Product Hunt in the AngelList acquire? Like, because I know that was a community, or I didn't particularly notice any changes as far as that goes. But
see, I noticed a lot, but I don't know if it had anything to do with the AngelList acquisition. I've just noticed a lot of changes recently. Hunter, what did you think?
I didn't see anything from like a consumer perspective, but from posting perspective, it might have changed a little bit. But just going back to this real quick, I do think though, I think it's important to remember, I think it was Microsoft that bought GitHub, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'd be interested to see what Microsoft does with Teams and whether or not they leverage NPM and GitHub into the Teams, because there's a lot of friction right now with Teams joining Teams. So I'm interested to see if this helps alleviate some of that and see the integrations that come. But
I think what they'll probably do is that they'll just make NPM more accessible. Like they'll add a nice GUI to it on the website. Like you could search it and like install packages just off github.com instead of what, you were saying all over the terminal, Brooke. Because it's very like dirty old hacker style way of doing things. You're manually typing in commands. You have to search for package names explicitly. You can't just like search for some keyword and bring up a list. It's all done through the Mac terminal or the Linux terminal. I feel like GitHub has an opportunity to make something cool out of this and host it on their website and stuff. But your Product Hunt has questions actually really good. It's a great example of something that started very community driven and very like open and honest and driven by the people, and then definitely became, I think it became a little bit too profits driven. Their ad packages, like Hunter and I have been looking at their advertising rates for stuff, in my opinion, are just exorbitantly expensive, especially for something that at a base level you get to use for free and already reach the same audience just by launching. I understand why they do it, but it's definitely catering to a different version of a startup. Like, we're VC funded and it's still really expensive and something that would make a huge dent in our runway to throw that kind of money at it. Did you notice anything when that happened?
I didn't, but I haven't been a poster on Product Hunt. I'm purely a lurker, I guess. So I didn't personally notice anything. We haven't done a product launch on there in quite a while, but it is interesting. It's something I'd love to keep an eye on, because we definitely are like for the people, by the people. So it's like as we grow and get funding and all that kind of stuff, interesting to see how different companies or products that are based on that kind of evolve when these big changes happen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because for AngelList, a lot like Andreas Klinger, yeah, he works very closely with the Product Hunt team, and I think that they just happen to have very similar outlooks on what they want the companies to look like. I remember when Product Hunt got acquired, one of the things that Ryan Hoover said was like they align so closely, and I know a lot of VCs are obviously on AngelList, and they're also looking at Product Hunt almost every single day. So those things are really similar. What I think is interesting is I was recently talking with somebody about how Reddit has basically become too corporate and they've censored things and they're not making the right choices. So I think in that case, it was like community driven first and then like a corporate layer on top that just didn't jive with each other. So I think that's why Product Hunt, you didn't see the change. So I'd be interested because GitHub actually was community driven and then now NPM was community driven. So I'm hoping that that stays the same, and that way you won't see the change either. We'll see though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I think you're right in that they were very similar cultures, and that helped that mesh, because they're fully remote. AngelList really supported that. I don't think you saw many changes. Obviously Product Hunt didn't go to like a paid product or anything like that. But I've seen changes as a poster for sure. So it's interesting, Brooke, that you say you didn't see any changes from a lurker, as you called it, perspective, because that's interesting, because it is obviously a huge audience that they have to cater to at the same time. And if that's not changing, then maybe that's good. And maybe it's supposed to be changing, for us that are hunting products and us that are product owners, which, by the way, if you guys end up wanting to launch anything soon, especially around kind of like the virtual stuff that you're working on, definitely let us know. We would love to hunt it for you on Product Hunt.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Love that.
For sure. Cool. All right. What's
awesome.
Next?
All right. So this is Amazon workers, and Instacart, I believe, kind of doing a strike. I have, I guess, political feelings about this, but Brooke, you're probably a little bit more integrated into the startup culture. I'm wondering what your thoughts are and like what you've done internally at your company in terms of working. I'm sure you guys, like, remote's not a big deal for you, but what about people that maybe had like kids in school and they have to take care of them? Like, what have been your policies around like having people work during this time, and what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so our team is small, very small. So Darren and I are the only full-time, and then we have 3 close to full-time contractors. So as far as policy goes, like Darren and I, we had a team meeting, and it's just very people first. And so making sure to like be clear, like, how's everybody feeling? Is there stuff you need to deal with? And if you do, like, that comes first before anything. Like, Darren and I have our eye on the prize as far as business stuff goes. And so we just really care that people feel supported. So, but like I said, we have a small team, so it might be a little bit easier to do things like that. Darren does have a 2-year-old. So he's been in isolation with him and his wife, who's also was always a remote worker, but they usually had childcare. So that's been interesting. And I think just myself learning, don't have any kids, so learning to be graceful and trying to understand that, and that we might all have to work at different times of the day. Sometimes he can work only from 10 to midnight, and we just have to be flexible around that. That's just how we've been dealing with it. Interesting about Instacart, because even just here in Portland, I've heard like you can't get deliveries at all that we've tried, and yeah, so it's just interesting to hear.
Oh, really?
This news.
You can't even get deliveries in Portland?
God, no, it's been like, I think people have had different experiences, but it's like, 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out. And that's just not really how, that doesn't work with groceries. Yeah, we have a local company. It's actually a fellow Techstars company called Local Milk Run. And you order directly from the farmers. So I've been trying to push people.
Oh, cool.
The founder's freaking awesome. But it's just super cool. And it's like I said, the bigger companies and grocery deliveries seem to kind of be, I don't know, not being able to service people as quickly as needed.
I don't know if I sent this to you, Justin, but I saw this butcher delivery, basically the same thing. Instead of milk, it's like meat. I'm getting ads like crazy for it now. I mean, I'm super into like eating.
Is it the Ty Lopez one?
But I don't know, maybe. But I think it's interesting that these startups are kind of taking off right now. But at the same time, you have people like Instacart, they're striking. So there's like this. The industry is booming, but at the same time, the employees feel like they're not being protected. I think this is crazy. This is really
I think
crazy.
For me, there's such a weird split here, because you have half of the U.S. saying like, "Hey, let us work. We have to make money. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay our bills?" And then you have like literally the only market in which you have the most secure job, like an Amazon warehouse worker, because that's just the only way we're going to be able to get stuff in. And I can already tell that stuff is going crazy. I've got this crazy streaming set up here about a camera, and I've got it all set up. And to really get it set up properly, I need a dummy battery so that the battery doesn't die. And it's 2-day ship off Amazon, except for it's going to take a month to get to me right now because they're so backed up on deliveries. And like, it's got to be the most secure job that you could possibly get in America right now is like a delivery person or a warehouse worker. And like, a part of me wants to say like, be thankful for the job that you have. I don't know if that makes me sound like coarse and I don't know, I might get shit on for that, but like in a way it's just weird because they have literally the only job that has no chance of being lost and they're striking. Now that doesn't say that Amazon shouldn't be paying them more. I mean, Bezos makes just a ridiculous amount of money. We can have that conversation all day long, and Hunter, I know you have all kinds of thoughts on that, but like it just seems weird to me that the only people with incredibly safe jobs right now are like warehouse workers and nurses. And the nurses we should just bow down to and be incredibly grateful for. But like the warehouse workers, like, dude, you have the golden opportunity right now to just have like really steady money for a very long time. I would not want to screw that up. I don't know, Hunter, what do you think?
I'm actually more interested in what Brooke thinks because even on her LinkedIn, she specifically says that she's humanistic. So I'm actually curious from from an empathetic standpoint what she thinks.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that if you are not wanting to work, I think employers being willing to lay people off, like, I don't know what that, I know that's happening a lot. Employers are laying people off so they collect unemployment. Maybe that's better for them. I'm not exactly, sure about that, but I think you're right, just some people willing to work. So it's kind of like, if you're not willing to work, then choose this path. You can, whatever that is, whether it's like, we'll lay people off, do it if you don't want to work. And then people that do want to work in the world can do this. And like you said, like, yeah, you're putting yourself at risk, but if that's your choice, just like a nurse or any, you're choosing to work. So I think having different options for people based on what they're comfortable with or not, I think is probably the way to go. It is a strike.
Yeah, the key word you just said, though, is choice. As long as the people have the choice to, I think that's fine. I noticed that I think yesterday Burger King is giving bonuses out to people that actually work through it. So if you're willing to take the risk, I think that it's the right thing to do is for the employer to reward that. But yeah, you're right, Justin. I didn't think about that. That's really weird, though. At least from the media, it makes it seem like half the people want to work, and the other half might be. I don't want to say half, but the other half might be striking. It's a weird time. Though, so.
It's interesting to me just because I think, I don't know, I subscribe to Choosy Beggars on Reddit. It's a subreddit where people just post screenshots of people begging for stuff, but then being very picky about the free stuff that they're given. And, it takes a certain type of person to be like that, I guess. But for me, this seems like one of those situations. It's like, oh my God, we're going to hell in a handbasket. What are we going to do? Oh, thank God I have a job. And then it's like, oh, well, you need to pay me more. I need hazard pay. I need paid time off. Actually, I don't want to work at all, but I still want you to pay me. So there's like all these like, slight changes that they want made when in reality, like, they're kind of fortunate. They have the only job that has no chance of going away right now. And I'd be clamoring for that. I mean, my wife's down to 2-day work weeks. Their hotel's at 8% occupancy. So they've laid off the majority of the staff, even at least temporarily. Like the lead front desk person just doesn't have a job. She's getting paid, but she's asked not to come in. And my wife is covering for her now because she's considered an essential employee. And like, I see all of these people losing their jobs left and right. And so the last thing I would be doing is like going on strike, I guess. I don't know. That's just kind of my position on it.
Yeah, it's interesting too. It's for me, my parents are small business owners. They own a restaurant and car wash, live shut that. So they're struggling to say the least. And so it's interesting when you compare it to that versus Amazon, when it's like, it's hard because it's like, is it because, you're such a huge company that people have different demands from them? How does this situation vary from small business owners to giant corporations as far as being an employee? And then, yeah, all the stuff you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. All right, what do we got next? Oh, okay, so all the Zoom stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of this, Brooke, but I guess, like, shit hit the fan for Zoom recently. I mean, we know that just millions of downloads and tons of traffic. For a while, I know they were even, like, clogged up on the video streaming. People were having all kinds of issues in quality on calls. But literally, like, I guess yesterday, just tons and tons of articles coming out about privacy breaches and data leaks. And then I guess like their mobile app was reporting stuff to Facebook for some reason, which I don't really understand. And now there was a bunch of stuff that came out today about like, if you sign in from a personal email account, because like there's no sign-ins necessarily in Zoom unless you're the account owner. But if you like type in an email, just when you click a Zoom link, it adds you to some contact list, and now you could accidentally call some stranger that you've never met before because you're included in like a company directory, even though you don't belong to that company. I guess my thing to talk about this, like the thing to chat about, is how much it sucks to be in the limelight sometimes. Like you're just under constant scrutiny. Like people are going to be looking at you harder. It's like a fear I have for my own startup, is that once we get big and we just have tons and tons and tons, millions and millions of users, that all of a sudden, you know, we're going to actually just be a giant target for people to attack. I don't know, Brooke, like, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, and with startups, people tell me that this is the best time and these problems are the best, most fun problems to have and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, yeah, as you get bigger and you step more into, you know, the arena, or Brene Brown reference, but as you step, then there's more things coming at you, and you're not vulnerable, but it's like you're there to be a target for other people. So yeah, I could imagine a lot of people, as this was happening, it's like, oh, fucking Zoom is like the best company to be right now. I'm so jealous. Like, what if, you know, wish I was Zoom, wish I would have thought about that. But then shit changes. Yeah. It's like stuff like this. And so it's like the grass is, you know, not always greener.
Do you fear that as a startup?
I do. But one thing I'm learning, just personally, like going through this stage of a startup, is that like, if it's scary, I should do it. So like even things like this, or I've been on a couple podcasts lately and things, like if I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that, it's like kind of putting myself out there, then it's like just do it, because that's, I think, the stuff that moves us forward. So yeah, as a startup, it's, of course it's a bit scary, but it's problems I want to have being a startup founder. Like I want to be in a position to be able to deal with that and complete the mission of which we all set out to do with the startups we've created. So yeah, it's scary, but not scary enough to stop doing it. I would say. What do you guys think? Yeah.
I think what's interesting about this is this, not to be political, but it just seems like Zoom's now getting canceled. So it wasn't, it was less than 4 days ago where I've seen, thank God for Zoom, my entire class, my entire company, everything is running on Zoom right now. Zoom calls are dropping left and right less than a week ago, because of the amount of people on it. And so 1 week we have everybody's praising nurses in Zoom, and then the next week it's canceling Zoom for every flaw. I guarantee none of these flaws came about within the last 48 hours. It's just people decided to start saying something about it, or at least those stories started to get relevant because Zoom apparently IPOing wasn't making them relevant enough. Now that everybody knows who Zoom is, now these stories can come to light. And I just don't, to me, I don't really like that, where people are just kind of holding off on stuff until someone has success. To me, I think Zoom, regardless if any of this is true, I think Zoom has done an incredible job of handling the amount of traffic when the United States at least needed it most. I mean, even Google Classroom is a thing, but Zoom has really become the go-to tool right now. And it just sucks that like people are punishing the success, and it doesn't really seem to be from a good place. I mean, I don't know who DHH is, but
that's our Basecamp buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just the reason why I say I think there's a motivation behind it is because the last word in his tweet there says corrupt. There's a motivation coming out of it before we know all the facts. So to me, it seems more politically motivated and just trying to rip on their success versus actually caring about it. Because like I said, this probably didn't come out about in the last 48 hours. It's probably just people are finding out about it now that they're successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's new information, I guess, but it's not new facts. You know, they've been tracking people for a while. A lot of what he's talking about here is mostly the privacy breaches. Like, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this like 8 months ago, actually on the original Remote Voices podcast that never got released, when Zoom had that weird bug that would like let any website control your webcam. So a couple things that came up in this thread was they had that bug where they were like force installing something at like a kernel level that let any website hijack your webcam, because like they'd essentially built malware on purpose because it lowered the barrier to entry. Like it was less friction for the Zoom application, which is a question of how good of UX is too good. You know, like you've done such a great job building UX that you actually accidentally built malware. And then like the other thing they did is to lower the amount of like effort it took to install the app. They would hijack the like installation process using like scripting and like basically hit like next all the way through for you, so that you didn't have to like do all the installation yourself, which again is one of those things of like, is that genius or evil? Like it depends on kind of your perception, because they built something that totally like removed your like ability to decide or consent, I don't know, in a weird way, your software consent, which is such a nerdy thing to say, but it removed your ability to consent, but it also does actually inherently reduce friction. So I can understand in a way that like some dev or designer came up with this idea and thought it would be amazing because they could reduce this friction tenfold, and now, you know, Twitter is erupting because technically speaking that's a breach of my privacy. But I don't know. I think for me, one of the more interesting things here is what I tweeted out a couple hours ago, which you just brought up, which is like Google Classroom exists, and Hangouts and Meet and Uber Conference and WebEx, and there's like a million tools, Hop In and Join Me and all these things that exist for video conferencing. And somehow Zoom still became the de facto, which is like hats off to them. I think that's amazing, but I'm also really confused. Like where, like there's got to be some conspiracy theory here that prevented all these schools that already had an existing system, and you tweeted it out today, Hunter, just that like Google Hangouts integration with Google Calendar is unparalleled. Having that deep integration at a kind of company level is beyond anything that Zoom provides, because Google Calendar plus Google Hangouts, it's a match made in heaven. It just like auto creates these links for you. So like, why is nobody using these other pieces of software? How did Zoom become the central focus? For me, I'm just confused. I don't know if your experience has been different, Brooke. Like, have you guys used any other meeting tools?
No, we've been on Zoom for a long time, and just like a random, like when I've tried to do Google, like for me, I'm like learning. If you're not like in the technology industry, so for me, if I try to get somebody to use a Google Hangouts, they need a Gmail. If I try to get them to use Google Calendar, and they're still on, I don't know. I just feel like there's some barriers to just like whipping up a Google Hangouts. I think I haven't used it in a long time, but I think Zoom's like create an account, have a link, or just join, like that kind of, you don't need any other world around it to be able to use it. Seems why it's been so.
I think that's one of the key things, is the click without a link or without an account. The ability to just click a link and not have to like log into a Google account, or I don't know. I think especially for probably kids as well as older folks, it's like, oh, I don't remember my password. I have to have a Gmail to get into this. Why this doesn't make sense. Except for with, you know, Zoom, you just click it and it's like, yeah, my name is Justin, enter, and I'm in. So there is power in that for sure.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny. My dad called me this morning. He hasn't had voicemail my whole life. He barely can, you know, open up to search something on Google, and he called and was like, how do I do a Zoom call?
Oh boy.
I was like, what? And then I was like create one or join one. And I was like, you're going to have to get my sister on the phone. I'll get you set up. But it's just kind of funny because it's crazy. I was infiltrating all of these parts, like for people in my life that I never would have.
What was he doing a Zoom call for? What was the context there?
So he's involved in the local government, city council, things like that. So I think their city council was doing something on Zoom, and yeah, he wanted to join in.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, but it is interesting. And even just like, I don't know if you guys are on TikTok, but I feel like the Zoom stuff happening there became this like trend, kind of like stuff happening on Zoom, and the Zoom backgrounds and the Zoom private chat. Like, I don't know if that had something to do with it. Like once it got to college campuses, and it just became the, like, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, it's not a video chat, it's a Zoom call. It's like, it just became that kind of trend. So that's
so you're saying it's the teens' fault. It's the teens that caused this.
It is.
The Zoomer.
Okay. The Zoomers. That's even a more applicable term now.
And then just you were talking about, Justin, earlier, like, and I don't know if it's naivety on my part, but it's like, as people that are building companies, it's hard to just immediately assume maliciousness from Zoom as a company. Like, when things like this happen, like, hopefully people are pointing out issues that can be fixed and that the people building weren't aware of. But yeah, as far as like calling it corrupt and assuming malicious intent, and being a founder. That's it.
I think that's definitely the scary thing for me as a founder is, and Hunter knows this about me. Like, I hate being accused of something that I didn't feel that I did, and I feel like as a founder, I would be the first person to be like, "Yep, there was a security hole, totally on us. We will patch that immediately. Appreciate you pointing it out." And I definitely don't like the tone that everyone's taken to accuse them of being corrupt or evil or purposely breaching privacy. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just the first person to assume good intent, and it is scary as a founder to think that like you could mess up, and instead of it just looking like a bug, all of a sudden you look like a weird dictator.
Yeah. Agreed.
So it's a line to toe for sure, and I think we as consumers also just need to be careful to not, as Hunter said, just cancel people so quickly. There needs to be some forethought to put into, hey, we found this information. Let's look at it objectively and figure out, is this good, bad, or just facts? And I think that sometimes we're too quick to just jump down somebody's throat, especially when they're a like multi-billionaire, corporation. I think it's probably easier to distance yourself from that and start to point fingers. But all right, let's move to our last one, which I thought was super interesting. I don't remember who sent this in. Maybe it was Jordan, but I think this is really cool because this has been a hot topic for many, many years. Like Nilay talks about it a lot on the Vergecast. It's a very kind of political and government driven topic, but I think, last week we talked about this entire event and the virus and the quarantine starting new technologies, killing old technologies or old businesses. And I think this is a great example of Wi-Fi as a human right or a basic right or included in some kind of like government system, just like water and electricity. I think that this is the moment where we finally got pushed into that. Brooke, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote down. So, internet is a basic service. I remember I'm not, as far as politics go, I don't know if I always have the most in-depth knowledge, but I know that back when they were thinking about charging for certain websites or certain parts of the internet and all that kind of stuff, I was like, so not about it. Like, it should be a free place for everybody.
All the net neutrality stuff.
Net neutrality, exactly. Yeah, I was like, absolutely not. Like, I am not a fan of Comcast, like things. I just feel like it's a monopoly on information and connection and things that should be free, especially when it's become such a core part of all of our lives. So yeah, I haven't seen this tweet, but it's definitely an interesting take.
Do you think it'll happen? Like, do you think this is the moment and we'll actually make it happen?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like the companies that are providing us this internet would fight back pretty hard. I don't know if it's just going to happen. I think maybe the wave for people like actually giving a shit and like pushing it forward could definitely be intensified now, I think. But I think changes, especially when it's like giant behemoth corporations like Comcast and other internet providers that's how they make money. I think that would take time.
I mean, I think the way that they would feel comfortable with it is they would get compensated for it in some very large way. But there's some precedent on this, which is interesting. I think Hunter listened to this episode too, but Reply All had an episode about Intuit, the company that makes like QuickBooks. I never knew this, but they had this whole story about how they have an agreement with the government to provide this basic tax filing service for free. And they're required, as part of this agreement with the government, that the government will never compete with them. They will never put out some free tax filing service because they have paid Intuit X amount of dollars and have some agreement with them that says you must provide a free version of this. We will never compete with you as a result of that, but you have to have this free version of tax filing available to all U.S. citizens. And what the podcast kind of discovers is, they do offer it. They just totally name it something incredibly confusing, hide it 18 links deep on their website, remove it from any Google search results, and replace it with something that's called the same thing but with like some slight wording changes, which isn't actually free but says it's free. But yes, they do technically still offer it. And I feel like that's what we would end up seeing here, is there'd be some like basic free cable plan that they would offer, and then they would find a way to like still circumvent that system while cashing in some government check. Hunter, do you remember the episode that I'm talking about?
I don't, but I'm confused by the tweet because I don't I don't see the parallel between saying, okay, public schools are going online, therefore internet is a basic service. I don't see how you reach that conclusion. And
Well, I guess the
also,
question would be, how would you do your homework if you are legally required to go to school and graduate and not drop out of school as like a high schooler or whatever, and when you go home, you have to finish this thing, and you have to pay $80 a month for internet, and you can't afford that. Should that be something that I could, I don't know, put my food stamps card on to like government stipend my internet?
well, I mean, the argument has always been, well, you could just go to a library. Like that is one. But I think the question here is what you're talking about is, should internet be free for everyone? Is that what you just mentioned, that it should be
Yeah, I
free?
guess a basic service, like you would include it in, everyone has access to it. You can get, government
Well,
credits
who doesn't
to
have access
afford
to
it,
it right
things
now?
like
That's what
that.
I'm trying to figure out. Like who
Well,
who
I
doesn't?
mean,
'Cause as
I
far
guess
as I know,
financially
everybody
would
does.
be it would just be financially,
Okay.
right? They just can't afford it because it's too expensive, because as Brooke mentioned, it's run by a bunch of monopolies that can totally price out. Like I found out the other day, I didn't even know this, and Nilay talks about it all the time, but I have Comcast in my area. I wanted to get rid of Spectrum in favor of Comcast to get faster internet. And when I called them, they told me, oh, no, you can't actually use our internet because Spectrum owns the land that you're on. Like they own the area. Yes, we can install a line. Like we literally have line hookups that we can install. But there's like some agreement where we cannot install internet in that area. And I was like, okay, so I don't have choice as a consumer. Like the monopoly has decided what I am allowed to use for my internet provider. So it's not really a choice at the end of the day. And I think the same applies to, just this idea of it as a basic service right, that, they can charge whatever they want. And so if it's $1,000 a month for internet now because the price of internet has gone up because so many people are on the internet and you can't afford that, sorry, you don't get internet now.
Well, that's why we need Starlink.
Oh, okay.
Free
Elon's
Wi-Fi for
gonna
everybody.
solve everything.
Yeah, Brooke, what's your thoughts on Starlink? Do you know much about it?
No, I don't. Give me a quick take, and then I haven't heard of Starling.
I think he puts up
Like,
60
totally out of the loop.
satellites. Yeah, I think he puts up like 60 satellites a week or a month or something. He's going to cover the entire globe in satellites that give Wi-Fi. I don't know if it's for free or not, but basically like how we have GPS, that's how Wi-Fi will be. So literally anywhere in the world, you can pull out your phone and it'll get Wi-Fi.
I could imagine him, doing something like that. Like even now, but just like you said, with dealing with internet companies, getting it set up in a new place, anything that is literally, I don't know if there's many things that are more frustrating, but it's just freaking worse. But yeah, I know that. So with Xfinity, you like, now that we do have an account, there's all over the city and you can connect to the internet. So I could imagine a company, like that doing something that was easier to access, like actually being, making it affordable.
So maybe not in your home, but maybe, giving it out to like public areas or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, screw all you guys and the landlines and everything. We're going to bring it down from space and you pay us $5. Here's your internet. So I could do something like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of those free internet projects have died. Like Google, I think, just canceled theirs, and I think Facebook canceled theirs as well.
Facebook
Like
did
they'd
too.
been in,
Yep.
like they'd been in, existence for a while, and I don't know, maybe the just like profitability wasn't there, and they just weren't making any money, and it was just a huge cost suck. I don't know why they shut down, but I find it interesting that there were two big players that had the money to be able to do this, and were actually going into communities and countries and places that needed that type of service, and they still couldn't make that work, and they ended up actually canceling it all.
I think it had something to do
cool.
with Google and Facebook. But
Yeah, maybe they're not the right people to do it, but well, Brooke, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for hopping on with us. We will tweet out some awesomeness and some quotes from you, and hope to kind of share what you guys are doing with our followers. So appreciate your time today, and thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And just to commend you for what you all are doing. I feel like I've been a fangirl for a while. I just think it rocks. You guys do awesome work. That video you just put out was kick-ass. Like, I don't know, just love what you guys are doing. So many compliments and kudos to you.
Awesome.
Thank
Well, appreciate that. Yeah. Well, I am going to cut our feed and kind of get us to roll out with some music here. Thank you.